This meeting is being recorded. Raised hand. Participate by staying in this meeting. Leave meeting. Got it. Button. Displaying Carrie Lam. VSBA's avatar. 3-bar signal strength. Star Gmail 17. 01 byte September 13th. Copyright soon. Erection. Ganado.
All right. Thanks, everybody, and welcome to the September edition of the VSBA board meeting. We got a lot on the agenda this evening to go through. But the first item up on the agenda is hearing from the folks from the Necrason group. We've got Adam and Jessica with us. And at this point in time, Carrie, I will ask you if you can turn off the Zoom recording.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, we are back, and I think, Gaston, you would like to make a motion?
Yes, please. I'd like to make a motion that the VSBA renew the contract for the Necrason group as part of the 4-member coalition to for government relations work. I don't know how specific you want that to be. Over.
I think yeah, that's perfect.
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Adrian. So motion by Gaston, seconded by Adrian. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none. If I can get you all those in favor to raise your hands and leave them up just so that we can get a count. I'm counting 11. Oh, 12. Okay, you guys can put your hands down. All those opposed.
I'm going to abstain. It seems weird to me to vote for someone who's going to be lobbying me. So.
All right, so I've got 1 no, and then any abstentions. And 1 abstention with Martine. Okay, gang, so motion passes, and we will go ahead and move forward with that contract. All right, gonna move on then to item number 3 in our packet this evening, which is the reappointment of Jim Salzgiver as the VSBA representative to the Vermont Pension Investment Commission for another 4-year term. Jim, did you want to speak to this at all briefly, or?
Happy to answer any questions. The Pension Investment Commission, just to, quickly, it's an interesting group. I enjoy it because it, fits with my background and interests and all that. I think they're actually doing a very good job. It's an interesting thing that we've been working on for the past couple of years is the legislature had decided, I think, in a very smart way, that the Pension Investment Commission, which oversees really the investment of the funds, the investment of the funds, along with the decision of some of the key things like the assumed rate of return and all that, that's in the purview of the commission. But we don't oversee the setting what the the terms are for retiree benefits and stuff like that. A couple of years back, the legislature decided it should be an independent entity instead of it had been a part of the treasurer's of the treasurer's office, and everybody kind of that was actually pushed by Beth Pierce, the former treasurer, and got approved. That's been a very painful process, though, trying to actually, become independent. State government isn't really all that excited about giving up control over things. So that's continued to be a process. And I think, things are moving well. I've been really impressed with the leadership there. and with the staff, and the results have been very good. So I'm continue to be interested in serving, and I think the people, VSBA was added when the commission was created as having a representative. Historically, it had been a lot of other groups, the teachers, and since we oversee the teachers' pensions, state employee pensions, and municipal pensions, those folks all were represented. Certainly the teachers union and all, but a group like the VSBA was kind of absent and shouldn't have been absent. So I think it was a good move to have us represented. Even though I could be a dissenting vote on certain issues, I think I understand the VSBA and the interest of school board, and am happy to try to represent us on that organization.
Thank you for that, Jim. Mark Schauber.
Yeah, I would move to appoint Jim to the pension board for another 4-year term.
A second.
All right, Carrie, a motion by Mark Schauber, a second by Nancy Russell. Any further discussion on this one, board? All right, seeing none, raise your hand, leave it up so we can take count. Jim, if you raise your hand, we can make it unanimous. There we go. We're now unanimous. Board, I just want to take a brief moment just to acknowledge, if you're seeing a new face on the screen this evening that you might not have seen before, it's Melanie Virgilio. Melanie is interested in running possibly for an open seat in the Bennington area region, and she asked if she could come attend this evening just to get reacquainted with the work of the VSBA board, since she previously had been with us. So we have invited Melanie to attend as a spectator this evening, so please be on your best behavior. Don't make us look bad in front of Melanie, okay? And with that word of caution, I'm going to go to Michael Inners. Michael Inners, don't make us look bad, but you got a question?
That was a holdover. I'm sorry.
All right. I warned you. I warned you, buddy. I warned you about this.
Yeah.
Okay. Congratulations, Jim, on your new 4-year term. Next up on the list is item 4, NSBA Leadership Symposium Report. Floor, I did not talk to you about this ahead of time. Are you prepared to talk about this?
I am prepared. I can share it and you can jump in, or if you had a slideshow, I'll defer to you. No.
Let's just say that I don't have a slideshow.
All right. So do you want me to jump in, or do you want to get us started?
I had already put myself on mute, Floor, so you're good to go.
Oh, you're ready for yourself. Okay. So, well, I'll kick us off. It was a great meeting. We were in Salt Lake City, as some of you know, for the Summer Leadership Conference. There was a great brainstorming altogether. The NSBA board met the day prior to that, and I gotta say, it was probably it was just my second meeting, but probably the most productive meeting that I had attended. And then we set a lot of systems in place in order to keep us accountable and have our calendar. Now, the conference itself, like I said, it was in Salt Lake City. Christy, the president of the NSBA, is from Salt Lake City, and the hospitality was amazing. I think we were all blown away, at least the three of us, with the hospitality, but also, I don't know what I was expecting with Salt Lake City, but it was richer architecturally, and everybody, of course, was really, really nice. And then I'll tell you where Sue and I and Neil we would have disappeared for long. They had let us, but we didn't have enough free time to do that. But I'll tell you about that. I won't embarrass Sue right away because I'm behaving today in my meeting. So we mostly focus on 3. I have this card, so I don't know if you can see there were a couple of key speakers. This Trust and Inspire His name is Stephen Covey. He was one of the presenters and mostly spoke about, like being able not just to have people earn, so seeing trust is a little bit different, not just them earning your trust, but us willing to give them trust so that we can, better collaborate and inspire, and how we as leaders have a responsibility of building other leaders. I am, making this really short. Of course, that's not all he said, but he gave some, great examples. There was some, one particular presenter that I love was this young Native American woman that did a ring dance for us, and just show how to express different things that had happened to her on her life. And it was really nice to sort of bring that diversity into the conference too. And then there was the dual cello play. What was his name, Neil? I didn't write him down because he was a little controversial for the three of us at the very end. Also very inspiring, very, very talented, but also how to inspire kids and by playing positive music, but all of the adversities and looking, especially the one thing that he was really good about is explaining to, instead of seeing different things that we sometimes would have as a disability as something that holds you back, is more of a superpower, right? It makes you different, but it gives you a superpower. Then the next part, we had our regional meeting. The Eastern region had a good meeting led by Neil and Sue, and we voted it was the only candidate for the Northeast, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, Neil, and that was Becky from Maine, will remain and serve for another 3 years. And then we set some expectations for how we were going to communicate as Eastern representatives to make sure that we are communicating the latest information that comes from National School Boards Association. The last, that was our meeting. And then the last part of the meeting was focused around advocacy. We had about 21 different states represented in that big conference room. And we were able to prioritize some advocacy issues. I'm just going to read out loud a few of the most important ones. So behavior around the country that were important. So behavioral wellness and health. So mental health for students. Support and retaining staff. Everybody is really struggling with the staffing needs. The IDEA, authorizing funding for individuals with disabilities education act, that's something that would benefit Vermont too significantly if we got the funding that necessary. Digital access, including artificial intelligence. You saw the nice note from the nice article written by Cara, and also your letter by your president. And I'm sure you all read your little booklet that just came from School Boards Association. And then they keep calling in learning recovery, which I dissent, and I just want us to meet students where they are, and instead of calling learning recovery as meeting student needs where they are right now. What am I missing besides the embarrassing pictures? No, just kidding. I'll save the pictures to the end, but where we got lost is they have the library more. We went to the library. What is it called, Neil? Mormons have
the Family Research Center, I believe. The Family Search Center.
Yeah. So Neil went before us, and then Sue and I sort of, instead of going to the cocktail hour, we went there, and I barely was able to get Sue out of there because you can get lost finding all of your relatives in Ancestry. Basically, they have the best records, including foreigner records, which was mind blowing. To me. What did I miss? Sue?
No, Flora, I think that you hit all of the highlights. I think, the one thing that I might add, right? So NSBA is, we're a smaller organization. Now, we've talked about this before, but, due to the events that happened, a couple of years ago, I believe that we are currently at 22 state members as part of the NSBA. So, almost basically half of what we were previously, which means that, when we get together, we're a little bit smaller. The points of view, I think, might tend to be a little bit less diverse than they previously were. But I think this time around, the discussion was still good discussion that we had in the leadership conference. And I think that it was still beneficial to be able to get together and talk with other board members from other states to understand what they're going through. A lot of cases, there are similarities, but in a lot of cases, there are differences as well too. And it's good to understand both of those things just to provide a little bit of context for the work that we do here in Vermont. On a less positive note, I will add that Sue and I both got a departing gift, which was COVID on our way back the trip, which was fun, but I guess not entirely unexpected. I had managed to skate through the entire COVID period without getting COVID. So this was the first time that I'd gotten it. And at least in my experience, it was okay. It felt like just a bad cold, but nothing more serious than that. All in all, a worthwhile trip, a good trip. I actually like leadership conference maybe a little bit better just because you have a chance to dig into some of the issues a little bit more, to have those thoughtful conversations a little bit more, and just a little bit more opportunity to hang out and talk with other board members. Sue, what's the ED perspective on the trip?
I was able to, whenever they have these meetings, they set aside an hour in the morning for the executive directors to get together. So I was able to get together with my colleagues from across the country, and I always find that to be really beneficial. We share a lot of ideas with each other about running school boards associations, and I always feel a lot of support from all of them because it's a relatively unique job, and it's just really helpful to be able to talk with other people that do the job. So I really appreciated that, in addition to all the other things that Neil and Flor both just spoke about.
Gang, any questions about the trip? Mark Schauber, go ahead.
I wonder, does the NSBA want to bring the organization to the states back in that left? And if so, what are they working towards it?
You want to take
Are
that?
there
Flor?
efforts on those ends?
Yeah, Mark, there's a couple of states that slowly have started to join sort of both organizations. So Indiana, Michigan, and North Dakota now, because there was another organization that came up. So we're basically, one playground separately that couldn't play with the other kids. But the plan right now is to best serve the states that are in the organization, and then we have been opening it because there's a lot of states that the board members like you guys would want to join, but like in New Jersey, the legislature has mandated for the association to not join NSBA. So what we're doing is allowing local board members to attend conferences like CUBE, like where you have a more dense cities, allow board members to attend, to be part of all of the councils. So I attend to the Native American Council, the Hispanic Council. So opening it up for that sort of so that they can slowly start to push their own states to join NSBA by seeing the services. That is what we're doing right now.
Yeah, I would highlight
Thank
too,
you.
so there and I still learned something new about NSBA that I didn't know. And I don't know if it's because NSBA is incredibly complex and I'm just a little dull, or if there's some disconnect there, but I learned something new almost every week. There are other aspects of NSBA, and Flor just mentioned the CUBE conference. So it's the Council of Urban Boards of Education. That conference, I think it's going on
Right now in September, next week.
Yeah, that draws a huge number of board members from across the country. And that one, I think that they have seen has not sort of split along the red-blue lines that we've seen at the national level. So it's still an NSBA sponsored event, but it's drawing board members from all across the country. And so we don't see that same sort of political divide for conferences like that. There's also an aspect of NSBA, which is called National Connection, I believe is what it is for, right? And
Yeah,
that seems to have retained a lot of folks in that engagement effort. So there are pockets of NSBA that seem to be able to continue to attract and retain a wider, more diverse, more encompassing array of school board members from across the country. It's just this one aspect at the national level seems to have caused this a little bit of a political divide. So.
and I
Besides
think,
the
go ahead.
I was going to say, just besides the and I put this in air quotes, the great state of New Jersey. Are there other state legislatures that have mandated that they not join the NSBA? Even for New Jersey, that seems a little crazy. But
I might be wrong, but I think New Hampshire did something similar, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, so I believe the issue so what while we're used to the setup that we've got in Vermont, where VSBA is almost an entirely independent organization, in other states, those state associations are actually creatures of or even formed by the legislature. So they exist because the legislature created them, or they exist because the legislature provides funding to them. And I believe in the case of New Hampshire, and Sue might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, that some of the funding that the New Hampshire School Boards Association got was through the legislature. And so the legislature can basically come in and say, well, if you want to continue to receive that funding, you need to give yourself some distance between you and the national, which is, I think, essentially what happened. So, there are some political dynamics going on at the state level in some of these places that, make the state association position sort of directed in a sense.
It's really interesting. Thank you.
We are fortunate in Vermont in many respects. Any other questions on this agenda item, gang? All right, seeing none, I'm going to move on. Let's talk about our own annual conference.
Okay, so normally I would ask Debbie to speak about this, but she is in Winooski working with the school board. So I'm going to provide you with the conference update. So planning for the conference is in full swing with the Vermont Superintendents Association. And this year's theme is supporting student success through school district governance. It's going to feature 2 keynote presentations on the why and how of good governance for successful student outcomes. And we also have workshop offerings on the work of school boards that are aligned with the pillars from VSBA's essential work of Vermont school boards. With the recent adoption of the district quality standards, we're going to be highlighting the new governance standards throughout the conference to demonstrate they aren't anything new really, but rather part of what effective boards do or follow already or should be doing if they're not already doing it. We all know that all work and no play doesn't make for such a fun conference. So there's going to be an element of fun with a reception on the first night, followed by a banquet dinner with a live jazz performance by students from Hanover High School. And some of those, of course, are from Neil's town of Norwich. Keynote presenters are Jennifer Berkshire. She's a lecturer in education, journalism, and education studies at Yale University. She's a journalist and a podcaster whose work explores the intersection of public education and politics. Her writing has appeared in the New York Times, the Washington Post, The Nation, The New Republic, and many other publications. She's also the author of 2 books and the creator of an education policy podcast called Have You Heard? Our second keynote is Daryl Camp. Daryl is a longtime superintendent for school districts in California. He's currently superintendent of the San Lorenzo Unified School District and also a governance consultant with the California School Boards Association. And he develops customized school board development workshops for governance teams. And just wanted to note, as leaders of your school district, it's really important. We've been trying to get this message across in our weekly emails that it's really important that you and your entire school board get the professional development and networking opportunities necessary to do your best work together. And one of the best ways to do that as a school board is to learn as a team along with your superintendent by attending the fall conference. Wanted to also make you aware that the conference is going to offer board chairs and superintendents the professional development hours that they need toward their annual training requirements that are required by statute. And ask you to please help us increase attendance at this year's conference by attending yourselves and also encouraging your board colleagues to attend with you. And if you need more information about the conference, please feel free to be in touch with any of us. And also you can find a lot of information on our website under the events tab. That's my the end of my annual conference update.
Great.
Awesome.
I've got to go. Thank you all so much.
All right, Nancy, talk up the
Later.
conference. Talk
All
up
right.
the conference.
Oh, I'm already registered.
Yeah, you need to bring 5 other friends.
I'm gonna go right there and talk to them now about it too. Okay.
Nice.
Thank you.
And gang, I really, so I will just a little anecdote. So I was at my local board meeting last week and we got to the end, we're talking about the annual conference, and believe it or not, as the president of the VSBA, my local board still didn't, they're like, what, there's an annual conference? I was like, oh my God, board, come on, get with the program here. And so I made the pitch for it, and I will say not 2 days after that, we had a couple of board members register for the conference. So I'm here to tell you that your words of wisdom, advice, encouragement, if not a little nudging and a push, can actually make a difference. We really would like to see us beat last year's turnout if we can. That's sort of the goal here, I think, right? And so please do what you can to talk it up, to let folks know. The other thing that I will throw out there is, if you're aware of a board meeting coming up, let me know. I am, as long as they've got a Zoom option or some remote way of coming in, I am happy to join those meetings during public comment and just make the pitch that those board members ought to come to the annual conference. I'm happy to do that, assuming that I don't have my own board meeting going on that night. So if you know of those, certainly reach out, let me know, give me the link, and I will do what I can. All right, and I expect to see all of you there. And those of you that I do see there, I've made this offer before. I will buy you a beer at the conclusion of the business meeting, not before, unless I'm trying to get you to vote a certain way, right? Okay. We are going to move on, unless anybody's got any questions about the conference. Good time. All right. State board rulemaking and the rule series 2000 and 2200. Sue, is that you or is that?
Yes, I can provide, this is really just an update to make sure people know what's going on, because there's been quite a bit going on over the summer, actually. So first, I'm going to talk about the Rule 2000 series. That's also known as the Education Quality Standards. And as you know, the proposed Education Quality Standards changes are based on the work of the Act One Working Group, and that is a diverse group of stakeholders charged by the legislature and Governor Scott to ensure that those education quality standards are inclusive, anti-racist, anti-discriminatory, equitable, and culturally responsive. And just to remind everyone, VSBA was a member of that Act One Working Group, and a committee of this board provided feedback to the Act One Working Group as the changes to the education quality standards were being developed. And it was a very lengthy and comprehensive process, first with the working group, and then with a committee of the state board that worked on the EQS for over a year. Then that was after the working group had worked on it for like a year or two. So it's been a very long process. On May 17th, 2023, the state board voted on those changes to the education quality standards. And they pretty much accepted all the changes that were recommended by the Act One Working Group, except they voted to remove private schools that receive public tuition from the changes to the EQS. So the working group had recommended that they be included, and the state board disagreed with that and took them out. Instead, the state board decided to reopen Rule Series 2200 to apply the provisions of Act One to independent schools. VSBA, as a member of the Education Equity Alliance, recently provided its position on this approach via written public comment to the state board, which I sent to all of you when it was filed, but it's also included in your packet. So you've received that twice. On August 18th this summer, the state board adopted proposed revisions to the Rule 2200 series. Those are the rules on independent school approval. So they had received some public comment, as I say, from us, which is included in your packet. And they received public comment from some other entities as well. But they voted to adopt the proposed revisions without really responding to any of that public comment. And they have voted to initiate the formal Administrative Procedures Act rulemaking process for the Rule 2200 changes. So that's at the beginning of the rulemaking process. Meanwhile, the public hearings on the proposed changes to the Rule Series 2000, which is the education quality standards that I spoke about at the beginning, are being held this evening and on September 28th and October 3rd. So if you or your board have feedback on the changes to the education quality standards or on the state board's removal of private schools that receive public tuition, you may wish to provide public comment on the proposed changes to the education quality standards. For more information on those public hearings and how to participate, you can go to the Agency of Education's rulemaking page. I'm happy to put that link in the comments if anyone would like to be able to take a look at the Agency of Education's rulemaking page. And that is my short update on the current state board rulemaking.
Any questions for Sue on this? Mark Schauber, go ahead, and then I'll go to Jim.
Do you know what the vote was when they decided to take the private schools out of 2000?
I believe it was unanimous, but I would have to double check that.
Okay, that was my assumption. Thank you.
Jim, go ahead.
I was curious on, one of the, and this is the old, using 2200 as a vehicle for trying to identify those schools that are not meeting the discrimination requirements and all. I pulled up that new website that you mentioned, and I'm realizing that I don't know the outcome of. There were a couple of schools that were asked to sign in the attestation with respect to non-discrimination back earlier this year. They made amendments to it when they submitted it to say that we get to decide what we think non-discrimination is. And then I remember, that was in the days of Dan French, and Dan French said that, if we need to make them, at least sign. I'm not a great believer that attestation is the greatest way to deal with this, but the AOE State Board of Education seemed to say, okay, well, at least you have to sign the attestation in the form it was presented and is required. But then it was sort of, I never heard anything further. I know that French had said that, require them to do this, and if they don't, then there'll be serious repercussions, which I don't know what that sort of means. But I'm curious if we know, where that stands.
I will have to check on that, Jim, because I know that there were either 2 or 3 schools that were in that situation. And my vague memory is that one of them may have decided they weren't going to submit the attestation. They had submitted it with changes and they didn't want to submit it, without changes.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure about the others, but I will check in with Emily
Well-
Simmons to find
Well,
out what
in
happened with
the
those.
Vermont Public Education Defense, website, as I said, there was in the under references, there was a point Vermont schools refused to comply with non-discrimination rules. And they presented the memo from Dan French to the State Board of Education. It was Mid-Vermont Christian and United Christian Academy who made the changes, and the recommendation was to make them do that by the next meeting, which was March. So I think, those are the two schools, and I'm just, that to me is, I get the feeling the State Board of Education is trying too hard to avoid litigation and therefore not really doing the job that needs to be done. And it's hard, they end up saying that we should use 2200 to implement this with the independent schools, and they need to use 2200 as a tool to actually ensure that enforcement is done. I mean, and if they're, not doing that, then that I would say is the argument for, the State Board of Education. If you can't actually make the rules work through 2200, then you're saying you're using 2200 to, as an enforcement vehicle, you're kind of losing your credibility there.
Yeah, I will definitely check into that and I will let all of you know what the outcome of that was.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this topic? All right, seeing none, then we will move along. And State Board Secretary search update.
I can do that one as well. I just thought it was a very important topic that you would want to be updated on. So there is some information in your packet. In your packet are the governor's letter that initiated the search for a new Secretary of Education and the meeting minutes from the first two meetings of the State Board's Secretary Search Committee. Issues were raised by several legislators and Vermont Superintendents Association regarding the open meeting law at the September 1 meeting of that committee. And that was really caused by the way the State Board and its committees are conducting their meetings. The board and its committees, they conduct their meetings on Microsoft Teams, but anyone from the public that wants to participate can only call into the meetings by phone. So at the September 1 meeting, the Secretary Search Committee started to discuss the work that had been undertaken between meetings by individual committee members, which and they had draft language in front of them that they were looking at. Those drafts were being shared among committee members using the screen sharing feature of Microsoft Teams, but that those could only be accessed by the state board members who had access to video and audio. Others attending the meeting, they were only allowed in through audio by phone, so they could not see the screen share, they could not see the documents, and the documents were not posted on the website. The point was made that essentially this is the equivalent of an in-person meeting of a public body deliberating behind a visual barrier with full and direct access to one another and the work products being discussed, while the public is left to follow along, listening from the other side of the visual barrier. When they started getting into this approach, public comment was asked for and granted. And as I said, there were people that weighed in saying that they didn't think that this was an appropriate way to conduct open meetings. So we're hoping to see the state board conduct its committees conduct their meetings differently in the future, hopefully by allowing the public to access their meetings online through the Microsoft Teams application so that they can see what's being shared on the screen. The next meeting of the State Board Secretary Search Committee has not been scheduled yet, as far as I can tell by looking on the website and looking at the minutes of the most recent meeting. but given the importance of the role played by the Secretary of Education, I thought it was important for this board to have an update on the process and the time frame. It looks like they're going to be planning to have interviews around the end of October.
Any questions for Sue on this one? Sue, I'm thinking that we should reach out and offer to hold a training session for them on the open meeting law. You know, should we consider the State Board of Education a member of the VSBA and they could deserve some training? Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick comment. You know, again, as somebody, you know, for folks who don't know, Dan French was our superintendent before he was the Secretary of Education. And I mean, you know, it's interesting in that all of the descriptions of what people are looking for, they're saying, oh, we've had a problem before, and so we need to fix it. And here's what we need. And they describe a person just like Dan French, but kind of missing, you know, I'm not sure what it is, but I'm just concerned that, you know, what we were missing is somebody could actually, you know, make the agency operate as it should to meet its obligations under the law and to the educational system. And you know, it doesn't seem that there's any focus. So I don't know, to some extent, you know, if we were going to provide input, I mean, all of us have frustration that the agency of ed has not performed as it should. And, you know, I'm just thinking, you know, reminding people of that and saying, you know, that's what you should be focusing on. You know, it's somebody who understands education and supports it. You know, Dan French was all over that, but, you know, he, in the end, the way he operated and the way the Agency of Education has operated for a long time just hasn't gotten the job done. So I think, you know, trying to make sure people understand that our view is that the Agency of Education needs to be better at its job, you know, essentially.
No, agree, Jim, and maybe you should keep your eye out for that next meeting so that you can go in and provide some public comments.
Happy to, yeah.
Yeah.
Let me know when it is.
Okay.
Yeah,
No,
I will.
Flor, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you to Sue for updating us on that and the responsibility that we have in keeping an eye on that and keeping pushing for transparency, and also continue to advocate for, you know, as we look at this long term in the legislature, if we continue to have a secretary appointed by the governor, we continue to not be able to do what we need to do to best serve our kids. Right. So the Secretary of Education needs to be able not just to do what Jim was saying, but to be able to stand for public education and be able to support public education as its full and not be compromised by the appointment by the governor, whether it's a Democrat or Republican or a, you know, or it doesn't matter which party. It's just should be accountable to the kids in our state.
Thank you, Flor. Dan, oh, sorry. So Dan, I think you just joined us. So I just want to make sure that you're aware. Earlier in the meeting, you were nominated and unanimously elected as the new VSBA mascot. And you are required to wear an apple suit at the annual conference now. So congratulations. Just want to make sure that you were aware of that.
You know, an apple suit, those are sort of rotund, right? What am I going to have to do? How much time do I have to fill that void?
Well, it's part of the suit. You don't need to physically do anything. You just put on the costume and then walk around as the VSBA apple.
Okay, got it. Well, you know, back to the matter at hand. I wanted to say too that I think we all understand that the agency is continually underfunded. And I believe VSBA has resolutions saying that the legislature should continue to address that. So not trying to let Dan French off the hook, but let's get the money flowing that they need too as well. So just want to point that out.
No, I mean, all good points, but like almost two different areas of focus, right? So one is the current focus that they've got on nominating a candidate for the secretary position, but then there's the whole legislative side of things of making sure that the proper funding, goes to the agency. And so it's going to be a combo effort of looking at both aspects of this, really, I think. Any other comments, questions? No. How about the strategic plan monitoring report?
I can start us on that, and then Carrie and Kara have a few things to highlight after I'm done. So earlier in the meeting, I provided you with an update on the annual conference and our public comments on the proposed changes to the Rule 2200 series. So I won't go back over those, but those are covered in the strategic plan monitoring tool. Another thing I wanted to highlight is that in August, the VSBA supported the work of the employer commissioners by sending a joint letter with the Vermont NEA to school business officials and superintendents with information and dates related to data collection for the third round of statewide bargaining for school employees' healthcare benefits. And we followed that up in September with the actual data collection tool. So that data collection is underway because the next round of bargaining starts in the spring. I also wanted to let you know that the new VSBA staff, which is Debbie and Kara, are completing the Kirwan Institute Implicit Bias Training Program, which the rest of the staff had previously done a couple of years ago. Carrie and Kara also have some areas of the plan that they would like to highlight, so I'm going to hand it over to them now.
All right, I'll go first. If that's all right, Kara. Okay, so I was going to highlight KR 1.1.1, and that is the wonderful work that you board members are doing, contacting your local representatives. That we've just started tracking it. We've never tracked it before. But I will say that in the past, we haven't had a lot of luck with people contacting their local boards. This year, so far this fiscal year, we've had at least 10 times that you all have contacted your local boards individually, and that's fantastic. We really appreciate that, appreciate your time. One reminder I'd like to give you all is the log on the email where the shared spreadsheet is. One of the tabs by the sample, it's right before the sample language, is the communication log. And if you could just put it in there whenever you send one out, that helps me log this so that I know how often this year is going to be our baseline to work from for our strategic plan. So it's helpful to me if you can please just log it in there so that I can keep track of it better. The next email that we'll be sending out for the sample for you guys will be the end of September, beginning of October, and it'll be regarding the conference. We want to give people some time before you send another one out, but the next one will be about the conference. And I appreciate, again, very much that you all are using that and are sending emails out. And I think it's been very helpful. That's all. To you, Kara.
All right. I am going to highlight for you KR 4.1.1, updating policies. VSBA staff have been very busy over the summer reviewing and updating 10 model policies that were last reviewed in 2019. Staff also reviewed and updated 3 financial policies, which we collapsed into 2 financial policies. All revisions were communicated to members through the weekly update in August on the 22nd on our website and I hope you all have seen those notices. Staff are in the final phase of reviewing the community use policy. That is with the legal team right now, and we're hoping to issue that soon. Staff are also currently reviewing our model policy on employee unlawful harassment to ensure compliance with recent updates to the state law. I made note of that in our weekly update from this week. VSBA staff will meet in September to develop a plan for reviewing model policies in light of Act 1, DQS, and EQS. Finally, we are reviewing our policy on responsible computer, internet, and network use. That's up for review because it was last reviewed in 2019. And we're kind of toying with maybe adding something about AI in this policy, but we're working through some of that right now. And then we've began a review on security cameras and the prevention of conflict of interest in procurement. So that's all that I have to update you on.
And Neil, I just wanted to also add that we issued a newsletter, the fall newsletter, and I think it's one of the best newsletters we've done in quite a while. There's so much great content in there. So I really encourage everyone to read the most recent newsletter. You should have gotten it in the mail and also by email.
Yes, I'm looking. Hang on. Bam. Right there, gang. Looks like this. It's sitting on your desk somewhere. Might be hiding under another piece of mail like that, right? But like Floor highlighted earlier, open it up, read it. There's some good stuff in there. Really an exquisite president's letter in there. Get to it. Any questions on the strategic plan monitoring report? No, Gaston, I'm sorry, did I make you laugh too hard? Sorry about that. All right, moving on then to the consent agenda, which includes the August minutes. I will look for a motion. Jim Salzgiver. What's your motion, Jim? Got to say it out loud. Oh, you're muted though.
Make a motion that I remember to turn off mute. Yes, okay. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the August minutes.
All right, seconded by
Seconded.
Lord Diaz Smith. Any comments, corrections, changes? All those in favor of the consent agenda, please raise your hand, move it up. All right. Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Tara, I got you. I saw you down there. All right. Thanks, gang. Moving on to new business. Just a couple of things that I wanted to point out. And first was just a few of us. So Nancy, Tara, myself, Sue, and I think Sandra are going to the Northeast region meeting. And actually, there's a good segue there from one of the things that we talked about earlier. This is a Northeast region meeting, but it's not affiliated with the NSBA. So in fact, New Hampshire will be joining us at this meeting. And we're going to do our best in diplomacy. We've invited New Hampshire to join us, the Vermont delegation, for dinner one evening. So we'll see if we can have some good conversation there, but also just an opportunity to talk with board members from a neighboring state, right? But we will do our best. That is September 29th and 30th in lovely Burlington, Massachusetts. So we can report back after that to let you know just how wonderful it was. I will note on a side that one of the board members that we've gotten to become friends with in Massachusetts is on the side a cake baker. And I will see if this comes true, but we ran into her in the hotel lobby one night and I posed to her that maybe she needed to bake a cake for this occasion. And she said, what kind of cake do you want? And I said, chocolate. She's like, do you want any extra filling in there? And I'm thinking to myself, how about cherry? And she's like, what kind of icing do you want? She took down the entire order. So gang, I am really looking forward to this cake when we get down there for this meeting in the Northeast. And if I could bring you back a slice, I would. I'm going to guess that I probably can't, but I certainly will let you know how tasty it was. The other thing too that I want to do this evening is this: we've got some acknowledgements, because believe it or not, for some folks, this is going to be the last regular VSBA board meeting. And so I just wanted to call out service for those folks, because you all have done a fantastic job for VSBA. And I want to thank you for that. So Adrian, Raymond, folks, let's give a round of applause to Adrian. I also want to thank Colleen McKinnon. Colleen, thank you. And also Mark Schauber. Mark, thank you very much. Jim, if you could kindly pass along our thanks to David Chandler. David, I believe, is not going to run again, so.
Will do. We have our regional meeting tomorrow, and I think he'll still be there, but.
And we'll be sending a glass apple to each of our departing board members.
Yes. So for those of you that might have been around long enough to see it, or happen to see him sitting on the office in the VSBA offices up in Montpelier, it's a nice little glass apple. So yeah, just a small token of our appreciation for everything that all of you folks have done for the VSBA. We greatly, greatly appreciate it, and we are going to miss you.
I just want to say thank you, and this board does admirable work, and we've had incredible leadership. So thank you all for continuing in this work. It's been a wild ride. I'm not going away though.
That is good. Mark Schauber.
Want to follow suit and say thank you to everybody. I've really enjoyed being on the VSBA, and I'm going to miss it. Thank you to Neil. You have been present the entire time I've been here, so thank you for your leadership. And to the staff, Sue, everybody, it's really been great. I do want to put one plug in, actually two plugs. One, since I won't be here, I do hope that you all will continue with the legislative committee. So I'm going to put that plug out there. And then also, since there are some new members here, the Coalition for Vermont Student Equity is going to start meeting again, because there's some activity with people waiting that we are following. If anybody is interested in participating in that, please send me an email.
All right. Any other new business, folks? All right, I've got one more item of new business, and that is y'all need to get people to come to the annual conference. All right. Even you board members who you thought this was your last meeting, I'm still giving you one more task, please. Okay. And that is where we're all going to see each other again, right? So no regular VSBA board meeting in October. We will all be at the annual conference. Board members, like, sometimes I can't figure out, like, sometimes these agendas look like they're going to take me all the way to 7:30, and then nights like this, we're done by 6:30. I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Michael Inners. Michael, you got to unmute though, pal. You got to unmute.
One question first, then I'll make a motion to adjourn. Will we have a meeting at the annual conference afterwards, like we did last year? A board meeting, or is that not planned?
Last year, there wasn't a board meeting. It was a committee meeting of it was that committee that was working on the governance standards. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll move that we adjourn.
All right. Seconded by Caston. All those in favor, have a good evening.
Hey, Neil.
See you in October. Oh, yes, Tara.
Yeah, can you, Sue, and Flora stay on? I have to talk to you about my school situation we talked about before.
Absolutely. Good thing I ended early.
I know. I'm pretty happy.